Darren and Harley with Wee TJ. All right, here it comes. We got a big day today. We got a lot of things we got to get done. Couple different projects, but I want to touch on once again as far as identifying different steering issues on a TJ. This is going to be a real quick. One thing I'm finding out about YouTube is that you're going to have to be revisiting topics, and Jeep's the steering issue is. So this is going to be just a very basic run over of how I would go through identifying and looking at the front end of my Jeep as far as possibly why it's not tracking, steering, handling bumps. Yeah, so let's get at it. If there's one thing that I've realized with how many newer people, and I shouldn't say newer people that, see, I grew up in a family that had a shop that we actually had to maintain commercial equipment. So I was around this stuff all the time, and I realized people don't have that experience or privilege that I had. I guess I'd call it privilege. But either way, I'm going to break it down for the newer people, and I guess even people such as ourselves, we have to constantly be reminded, you got to check this stuff. Once a year, I think you need to check your ball joints. If you you know what? I really don't care if this Jeep is only on the road, period. With the way the front axles are on Jeeps, I think you got to check your ball joints once a year. And how you do that, you jack up each side, take it off the ground a little bit, grab it top and bottom. Yeah, you can see me. Top and bottom, and just move it in and out. You're feeling for any subtle movement. We're not doing hard movements and large movements. We're doing very soft or short movements to where, because it's only going to move that much. I mean, well, not that much. It's going to be very incremental, and you don't want to be over emphasizing it, because you can actually cover up the movement by jerky moves. So just back and forth, moving in and out. Another thing we need to check, actually, I've done this twice, and I want Harley to go under there and check, because this Jeep drives good. I feel something small. Once you go in there and see what I'm looking at, it's gonna, if you find something, if you feel something, it's going to take a second person to identify which one it is. Go in there and tell me if it's the bottom, upper, or lower ball joint that's moving a little bit.
Wheel bearing.
Wheel bearing?
There's no movement in the ball joints.
There's zero?
The brake,
I mean, this is so minuscule.
Yeah, it's wheel bearing.
You think it's wheel bearing? I think that's a ball joint. Wow.
It's moving on the wheel bearing side, but none of the ball joints are moving whatsoever.
All right, so Harley says I got just a minuscule movement out of my wheel bearing.
I noticed it back when the first 2 times you tried this.
So I guess I need to check, possibly throw a new wheel bearing in. I mean, I'm moving it just a little bit.
It's so small that... Here, why don't you look at it while I do?
Let me look at it. I think you're right. I think Harley's right. I think I have just a...
Yeah, it's your wheel bearing.
That is so subtle. Is it up?
Yeah.
All right, we got the other side up. Yeah, I don't feel that on
I
this
don't
side.
see anything. Nah, the rubber's moving. That's all.
You mean on the tire?
Yeah.
We're just talking about little movements back and forth. Yep, this side feels good. So I might need a wheel bearing on that side. I guess I can check my axle tightness. Just saying, but all right, let's get in and let's go to the tie rods. All right, so Harley's going to start it up, move the steering wheel back and forth, small amount. We're going to check for movement from this tie rod to the spindle. We can't have any movement back and forth. All right, go ahead and start it up. That looks really good. That looks good. That looks good. All right, so guys, I'm going to tell you again that we do this quite often. I don't think you're probably good at doing this once a year if you're not on the trails, but if you're crawling these on the trail quite often, you're going to have to check these. I surprised myself. I was not expecting to catch a wheel bearing, and this thing dries fine. So we found that we got possibly a driver's front wheel bearing that is going to possibly start giving us a few issues. Now it's loose enough. It's loose enough that I'm going to dig into it to see why is the wheel bearing moving. So the last thing we got to check. And I want to back up one thing. So the tie rods. Most of the time people think that it's when you have steering issue on Jeeps, it's tie rod related. I would point to the first thing is the next thing we're going to check. That's the track bar. That is the number one thing that I think you need to look at is your track bar as to whether or not your Jeep is driving straight and handling bump steer and all that. The second thing is you got to keep up on your ball joints. And then, of course, you got to check your steering. Now, it's easy for the steering because you don't have to jack it up to check it. You want both your tires on the ground for that. And the track bar is the same way, too. The ball joint's a little bit more of a pain. You got to have a jack, and it's a little bit more laborsome. But all right, we're gonna check this track bar out. Harley's gonna start it up again. We're gonna check the frame side, and we're gonna check the axle side. You've got to have zero movement in there, in that track bar, zero. And I mean, you guys are gonna have to keep up on this, guys and girls, as far as your track bars, because there's just no forgiveness. If you want a Jeep that drives good, you guys have seen us run. We drove these to Michigan, just got back from Tennessee. We drive these things all around, and there's a reason why these Jeeps drive as good as they do, because we keep up on them, and it's not that hard to keep up on them. All right, let's check this track bar out. Start her up. All right, so you were bringing up about checking the ball joints, and can you demonstrate as to you're saying about going too aggressive? Yeah, he said this off the camera, so I wanted to show you what he was referring to.
When you're here, I For checking the bearing, I do 2 knuckles and just move it back and forth gently. Like 1 hit here, 1 hit here, 1 hit here, 1 hit here. You don't want to do both at the same time.
Of course, that's when it's jacked up.
Yeah. Both at the same time, because that won't tell you anything. You have to do hit here, hit here, hit here. And for ball joints, you're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive when you're pushing it, but don't be too aggressive, like, because you won't feel anything.
Okay. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hey, by us doing this video, we spotted a left front wheel bearing that's not making noise, and the Jeep's driving great. But if you want a Jeep to drive the way ours drive, you're gonna have to stay up on your ball joints, tie rods, track bar, all that stuff. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, there's gonna be a part 2 to this, and there's definitely going to be, because all right, part 2 is coming.
Yeah.
So you're gonna want to watch it. All right. See you.